Joy Division are a Manchester legend. They only existed for 2 years before the suicide of lead singer Ian Curtis in 1980. Since then, they've changed their name to New Order and have gone from underground status to global pop success. But throughout their career, they've been haunted by the myth that surrounds their early Joy Division days. The release of the new compilation album of Joy Division singles, Substance, by their label Factory Records, has attracted the usual controversy. The video to the current re-release of their 1980 single Atmosphere has been accused of exaggerating the myth that already surrounds the group, and Factory have been accused of cashing in on the revered singer's death.
Don't walk away.
When I hear Atmosphere now or any of the Joy Division music, it's like some weird ache from the past when our achievement in life, individuals' achievement, young people's achievement, was more orientated towards a more abstract ideal, a far more pure ideal of how to achieve some kind of perfection in life. But there was a time with punk, especially the way that some people interpreted that particular ideal, where we really did consider that the latter part of the 20th century and the early part of the next century was going to be more orientated towards an imaginative notion as opposed to a late capitalist notion of achievement, which is what kind of, high-tech equipment you own. In one sense, the success of Joy Division now is going to be done as a yuppie accessory. Between Coltrane, Joni Mitchell and, the Christians. But I think that's, in a sense, what Wilson wants.
As well as working for Granada TV as a newsreader, Anthony Wilson is a founder member and director of Factory Records, a key figure on the Manchester music scene. For a decade now, his non-compromising music business tactics have rubbed the London majors up the wrong way by ensuring that Factory remains independent and in Manchester.
It's quite exciting. I mean, these days it's all like drug dealers and musicians living in there. The council, thankfully, don't put families in anymore.
And this is the Caribbean Club used to be the Factory
It's
Club.
always been the Russell Club, really. It's always been the Russell Club, and this was the Factory. Before there was like a Factory Records, we ran a club here called the Factory in 1978. It was the punk scene, and people, as we do now, for the sake of this interview, used to sit on the steps out here in the sunshine. It's quite nice with the sunshine, actually.
What went on here when you ran the club?
It was 78, 79, so it was like real heart of post-punk, of coming out of punk. For Manchester, we had punk really happening here in a way that, because of its smaller environment and because of this, it had an intensity that it never had in London. You had that in Manchester. It produced Joy Division, the greatest group of their era, Buzzcocks, the greatest punk group, Joy Division, the most important post-punk group. In fact, the most important group since the Sex Pistols to today. But you had Martin Hannett, the great producer of his era. You had Peter Saville, the great designer of his era. You had all these, all these things that were there, and we had a great journalist. We had Morley, a great journalist. You had Cummins, a great photographer. So we had top-class stuff in this city.
The images come out of the design. They're vaguer, but words like grey, industrial, depressing. How does that fit?
It's like another of the myths, doom-laden. That's fine. I love all the myths, It doesn't worry me at all. I mean, there was nothing gloomy.
Hume.
I don't find it too gloomy. It's a bit of a drag today. It's a grey day today. But, I find Hume quite exciting. Manchester's very exciting. And it's like saying that Hamlet's gloomy or something. Even in those days, a Joy Division concert was not a gloomy experience. It was an outrageous experience.
Stand to the radio. Stand to the radio. Stand to the radio. Stand to the radio. Oh, I was called out when the going gets tough. Things you run out, no longer enough. Well, now we can sound, so we need to know. Synchronize love to the beat of the show. And we can dance. Stand to the radio. Stand to the radio. Stand to the radio. Stand to the radio.
violent, loud rock music at its absolute best, you know. So if London critics want to talk about, you know, raincoats and doom, that's their choice. I never saw any doom, you know. And you know, the true story is that Joy Division were a wild group. There is a high seriousness about some of the things. If you want to call that doom and gloom, fine. It touches many parts of the body. It touches many parts of the soul.
Described in The NME by Paul Morley as the greatest performer of his generation, Ian Curtis committed suicide on May 18, 1980. Down in the records as death by hanging, various sources in Manchester have it that the singer in fact overdosed on a combination of scotch and the pills he was taking for his increasing epilepsy. Nevertheless, the events surrounding his death have never been fully explained to this day. What were you doing when you heard that he committed suicide?
I was having my Sunday lunch, actually.
What were your first thoughts once you got over the shock?
I thought I'm not going to get to America.
It was on the evening of American tour.
Yeah, I was waiting to go to the airport, as I recall.
What were the first band discussions of the remaining members afterwards? What did they centre around the next step?
It just centred around carrying on, really. I mean, we knew we enjoyed doing what we did, and we thought we were quite good at it. And we were sort of getting the acclaim as a band that people said, yeah, you're pretty good musicians. We like buying your music, listening to your music. So we just wanted to carry on. It was quite simple.
There's a myth about it, the live fast, die young, leave a good-looking corpse and all that, which sort of, you know...
There's not many groups do it.
There's not many groups do it, no. We thought it was a good gimmick, actually. I'm very surprised he went along with it. No, it's just something that happens. I mean, the Doors and Hendrix and all these classic examples. In a way, it puts an end to something so that people in the future can look back at it and say it started here and finished here. It's sort of like very neat and tidy.
I think the suicide thing, you know, it was nothing to do with the group, really, was it?
No.
I mean, that was
But
the other world of his personal life, Ian's personal life. But, you know, that's why that happened.
Ian had taken an overdose sometime before, and it's one of those things that we'd all assumed it was a cry for help, a plea for anaesthesia or whatever. It was one of those ones that you presumed he was merely, you know, asking for help, and therefore it hadn't actually occurred to us that this would happen. It hadn't occurred. I think there is a mythic quality. I mean, Ian isn't a god, or wasn't a god, but I had rock and roll gods. I had Jimi Hendrix and stuff like that, and the early Bob Dylan, and they were worth having. It's a fabulous, popular cultural experience to have those people as your little gods, and I think there's a whole world out there for whom Ian Curtis' mythic role can provide a level of feeling and of whatever that people deserve to have. I mean, all the new people who understand New Order now may be in the midst of this world of novelty singles, a little bit of significance and quality and intensity.
With this 1988 Quincy Jones remix of the biggest selling 12-inch of all time, Blue Monday, and a BPI award for Best Video for the single True Faith, New Order are a far cry from their days of the ultimate angst-ridden post-industrialist band of the age. In fact, in their hometown of Manchester, they built up something of an empire. With this recent acquisition, a 5-storey property which will open as a private members club called Dry later this year, and this place, the Hacienda, possibly the most futuristic-looking club in Europe, New Order and Factory have come a long way since their staunchly independent days, when they supposedly turned down a $1 million American bid for Joy Division. Is that true?
Well, I think it's funny from Martin rather than strident independence. Did you hear this $1 million? I heard it after the event, yeah. I would have took $1 million, yeah. I don't think anybody approached the band with the offer. Only got as far as Martin Hannett.
6 miles out of central Manchester, this is Strawberry Studios, where Martin Hannett produced the bulk of Joy Division's music in the late 70s. A now bitter Hannett refused to appear in this feature, but instead he issued this statement. Unfortunately, my business hat was not firmly fixed to my producing head. To cut a long story short, I left Factory with a derisory percentage of the earnings from the sale of these records in comparison with the producer's fees I would have received from even the most avaricious major label. What do you think of that? The guys...
Better lawyers. He took us to court. It's his lawyers that agreed those amounts. We wanted to give him a better deal with points that he would have still been collecting on. He refused to accept the deal we offered him, which was a very, very good deal.
I mean, I think what's happened now is that the people that run that particular record label have in their kind of vocabulary a very kind of shrewd understanding of the way the world shifts. And there's no doubt that the idea of flogging the dead body, which is ultimately what it's about, however cruel that may sound, is really what they're involved in. It's the flogging of a dead body, it's the flogging of an image that they might be able to turn into a myth, which always comes down to a series of accidents, which in a sense we're playing part of. We increase the energetic response to this myth, this idea. You know, we're in a sense, we're all being forced subtly to respond. In no less a cynical way, I would have thought, than the way CBS flogged Ross.
What do you think of that?
I've always thought Paul Morley was full of anyway.
Seriously, does it work to your disadvantage that the myth of Ian Curtis continues?
Well, that's part of the reason why I don't like the video, which you haven't asked me about yet, because I think the video very much concentrates on
What
Ian.
video?
The Atmosphere video concentrates on Ian very much, and I don't like it. I was never really consulted about the video, and I don't like the Atmosphere video.
How do you think it's going to be perceived now as you're going to release the compilation LP, Substance, and
I think people are going to perceive it as some sort of rip-off, really.
Why now, though? Why this particular point in time, which is it's not an anniversary, it's an arbitrary 7.5, 8 years after the event?
To help us with our tax problems, I think it is.
New Orders and Joy Division never put singles on albums. So when we began to do CDs 3 or 4 years ago, we said, do you want to put your singles on the extra end bits? And they said, no, leave the albums as they are. So therefore, we always knew we had to do a CD of the singles. We happened to get around to New Orders last year, merely because it was harder to find the tapes for Joy Division. We got around to that this year. It is merely the accident of bringing out the digital versions of those singles which don't exist. But then it provides you with an opportunity to say, look at this, this was the greatest rock artist of his generation, and isn't it interesting that it's so these days?
I think if anybody's got the same kind of spirit and drive and response to the world as Joy Division now as a young person, they wouldn't go into pop. Because the people that own pop, and we all know who they are, will not allow it to happen. Which is, again, is another tragedy, which is why it's even more poignant to hear Atmosphere. Maybe Atmosphere was genuinely the full stop, the most poignant representation of what young people feel put on record. Maybe that was genuinely the full stop, and maybe now, as we approach the 90s and it's re-released in all this kind of necessary hype, maybe some people will stop and think, yeah, that was the end. That song was the end of pop.
Goodbye from Asbury Park. Next week, we're back in New York to Big Apple bass band, the Talking Heads. We'll also get a taste of country twang as we catch Lyle Lovett live.
Next week, we'll be